So digging right in today, I did not, for whatever reason, record an intro to this one. So sorry about that. Must have slipped my mind with all the excitement of getting back into the garage and working on my airplane again after a pretty long hiatus. So um, as you guys know by now, right? You've seen a couple of videos, hopefully. Life events, spring break travel, work-related events that kept me pretty busy for the last few weeks, and so it's been a pretty long break, and getting back into trying to button up this rudder. Now, at the end of the last video, we thought we were really close to getting the skin on. And I thought I was too, but that's not always how these things work. So today I got my buddy David in the garage here with me, which was really cool to have him hang out with me. It's been a long time since I've seen him. Pretty good friend of mine, and really enjoy hanging out with him. He's super, super smart when it comes to airplanes and airplane knowledge. So yeah, it was cool having him around. So we talked in previous videos about the many, gosh, and I forget the part number, if it's the 410, that funky angle brace that goes down at the bottom side of the rudder that I rebuilt like 3 times because I kept breaking them. And then I think we also mentioned in the previous video how I put the Riv nut plates, sorry, not Riv nut, the nut plates on the wrong side of the spar. And this is where I think right here is where I realized I made that mistake, and we start drilling those things out and replacing those. So shocking to me that I made it this far along without noticing that I had those things on the wrong side. So at any rate, getting those taken care of, getting those replaced and put back on the right side so that I can one day attach my rudder appropriately to the vertical stab. So other things to note about this rudder assembly, I don't know if the instructions are all that accurate when it comes to which rivets to put in and which rivets have to be pulled rivets. When you start assembling this lower bottom portion of the bottom rib to the spar to the angle bracket to the big bulky aluminum bracket that goes down in there, you start to get to a point where you just simply cannot get a rivet gun or a bucking bar, and you have to go make the decision to go put some pulled rivets in there. And so, not the end of the world. I went and we riveted what we could, and the ones that we could not reach, couldn't get into reasonably with tool, we put a pulled rivet on and got on with life. So we also went and did the RTV in the end of these things. So if you read the instructions, it'll say put like a fingertip size daub of RTV in the trailing edge, right where each of the stiffeners meet. So I started off with a rubber glove and trying to put the RTV on there and stick it. You can't get your finger in there far enough. Use the little tube that comes on the end of the RTV that's a couple inches long and just squeeze a glob of that in there, and that will suffice. Now, what you'll see here is getting the skin put on, and we're putting all the clecos in. And I know that's a lot of clecos, and it was kind of funny because we ended up having to take them all out and then put them back in and take them all out again. I will... it's not necessary to put all those clecos, a cleco in every single hole when you're putting these things together to rivet. However, I like to do that at least the first time that I put this together, because I stop and I give things a look, and I think the clecos, having all the clecos in there, help hold it together like it would be, or like it will be when it gets riveted. And then I can see, like, do we have any skin buckling or bending or folding or doing anything weird, or something not lining up? Do I have a hole out of place? So when we did that, we realized that there were a few holes that did not get dimpled. And in a minute here, you're going to hear me use the wrong terminology. I say countersink instead of dimple. Unfortunately, I don't realize it until after we start squeezing a few of these rivets. And I think I get like 4 or 5 of these things in here and realize, oh, dang, we didn't countersink some holes. So, and that might have happened actually twice. So you see, I just took the skeleton back out, put it back in. I think there was some, I remember now, sorry. There were some holes in the skin that didn't get dimpled. And then there were some holes in the skeleton that didn't get dimpled. And so we put all the clecos in there, realized that some of the skin didn't get dimpled, took them all out, dimpled the skin, put it all back together, and then realized after I squeezed a few rivets that some of the holes in the skeleton didn't get dimpled. And I think, if I remember correctly, at the very beginning of the instructions, it just says like dimple all holes. And I think that's absolutely right. I don't think there is a single hole in the skeleton or in the skin that does not get dimpled, shy of the 2 holes that you have to enlarge to secure the lead weight that goes up at the top of the rudder for the counterbalance. I think every other single hole on here gets a flush rivet of some sort and gets dimpled. So here we are, removing some of the rivets that we put in there, and getting this thing back to the point where we can get that skeleton out, so we can take it over to the Clemson Aeronautics yoke that Hisham sent me. That really close tolerance yoke, and it worked really well. It's mounted to the bench, which makes it real nice, and so you'll hear live action Jeff talk about that in just a second. All right, hey friends, we're to a spot here which I knew we would get to, where we have to utilize some of the tools that Hisham from Clemson Aeronautics sent us. So as you can see, we've got the pneumatic squeezer mounted to this really, we'll call it close tolerance or short depth yoke on here. And when we were putting together the rudder, we got the skin in, we started riveting, I realized that some of those holes were not sitting flush on the top side of the rudder. And I forgot to countersink, or I omitted some countersinking because I wasn't quite sure on some of these holes. So we had to drill out a few rivets, take the skin off, come over here to get a squeezer in. So there was no other squeezer setup that will fit other than this close tolerance one. So really kind of excited to be able to use this thing to give Clemson Aeronautics a review on this. But I looked at my hand squeezer, I looked at the other yokes that I had in the pneumatic squeezer, nothing else would work. So this is the one, and like I said, I knew we would get there sometime, we had to go use it. Here we are. So great tool, it's hands-free from the most part, right, because it's screwed to the bench top. And we do have the male die on the top, and so whenever you're doing that, you gotta be really sure that you're holding that thing in place while you're squeezing, because if not, you slip and you end up with a bonus hole, and we never wanna have to do that. So I'll confess, I owe Hisham at Clemson Aeronautics a phone call to discuss some of these tools. I had some struggles with it earlier when I was using it, and I think what had happened, or what needs to happen, is an adjustment to my hydraulic squeezer. I think that ram in there is adjustable a little bit, and when I was using it previously, and I had some video of it and I didn't post it, and I wanted to talk to Hisham first because I was pretty sure the problem was on my side, not on his tools, right? For full disclosure, the Clemson Aeronautic yokes are fabulous. Very high tolerance, very nice products, very stout, really great products, and very happy with them. And so what happened is when after I dimpled a piece of material, it's such a close tolerance that it was difficult for me to remove the piece out of the way of the dies, because that metal formed a little bit and it kind of got stuck in there. And I think I just need to go move my ram on my hydraulic squeezer just maybe a few hundredths of an inch to give myself a little bit more clearance in some of these applications. But overall, the yokes were great. Still owe Clemson Aeronautics a phone call to discuss and talk about those things and make sure that what I'm saying is accurate and truthful. But those yokes came in, especially that one today, saved the day when other yokes that I had wouldn't really fit inside there. So it was great. Really want to thank Clemson Aeronautics for hooking me up with those tools, and really enjoy them, and I'm sure I will continue to do so. So that was about it. Didn't get all the riveting finished on the rudder skin, but still getting close. Over to live action Jeff for the outro. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next time. All right, friends. Unfortunately, it's time to wrap it up for today. Made some pretty good progress on the rudder, and I'll tell you once again, and I know we've said this before, taking breaks from your building is really kind of detrimental to your process. Your skills diminish very quickly. Your memory kind of fades. There was a lot of go back. There were some mistakes on riveting that we had to go fix, and it cost us a lot of time. Right, I'm going to do better of trying to stay more consistent in the build thing. I know life gets in the way, job gets in the way, but and I think it's been like almost a month since I've worked on the airplane. So hopefully I can be more consistent on that. overall, it was a pretty good day. Had fun hanging out with my buddy David. Hadn't seen David in a while. David was actually my CFI, so he's the guy that taught me how to fly. So it's great to have him along here when he can hang out and build some airplane parts together. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, and as always, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. This is Jeff and Paper Gary out.